long-time steam engine driver to develop a new interest. He began to study in minute detail the eucalypts along the line. At times, he'd even leave his fireman to look after the engine while he took a closer look at the vegetation. From these small beginnings, Stan Kelly has established a reputation as a painter of eucalypts that's second to none. Martin Goddard reports.
In the Depression of the 1930s, Stan Kelly was lucky to get a job. For almost 40 years, he drove goods and passengers around the western half of Victoria. But part of his mind was always somewhere else, because from boyhood, he had always wanted to paint. So he began to paint the bush, the trees and flowers around Ararat, where he lived and worked. Eventually he found his niche, painting botanical specimens of the gum trees which surrounded him and which he loved. Many of his first specimens were collected from the sides of railway lines. But when he retired 11 years ago, Stan was able to travel throughout Australia. The result was the most comprehensive collection of scientifically accurate eucalypt paintings ever assembled, about 500 of them. The 2 volumes of his book, Eucalypts by Stan Kelly, has become the world's leading authority. Stan, how long does one of these take you?
Well, approximately 8 hours, depending, of course, on the number of buds and more buds and fruit would be the deciding factor on the length of the time I take. Sometimes there's a terrific number there, up to 200 or 300 to be done, so that's what takes the time.
Stan Kelly won't sell any of his paintings, though he could perhaps make a tidy living if he decided to do so. But Stan has had a lifetime of hard work. At 72, he no longer has to earn a living. Sometimes he'll give a painting away, but that's all. What is it about eucalypts which draws you to them?
Well, I don't know, but it's a terrific love of the thing. I suppose in the first place you have to be motivated by the love of anything you do, and I love the bush and I was reared in it, and I love wildflowers and I love eucalypts because they're one of the most interesting things about, as far as I was concerned, was that they were purely Australian, so that you never had to go out of the country. Well, there's 1 or 2 that grow out, but only two or three, but you don't have to leave the country to get everything that you required. It was all here, all available. And they were purely Australian, and that's the part that I loved about it. They were ours, and I was very proud to be able to display these beautiful things to the world and let them see what we really did have.
Achievements as a scientific painter are the culmination of his life's work. It would not have been possible without his job as a train driver. When Stan joined the Ararat depot, steam was in its heyday. It was a different sight then.
it was an absolute bustling centre. We had as many as 90 engines stationed down at the depot and as many as 50 trains out a day, and that made for a terrific amount of business and activity going on here. A couple of pilots working full-time right around the clock, and well, activity wherever you looked. It was a fantastic place. What killed it was the advent of the diesels. There was no shed staff required, no ash pit or pit staff required, no wood brought into the shed. It meant an enormous difference to the town financially, and of course practically the whole staff from the shed just vanished.
Stan, this must have been one of your machines, must it?
Yes, I drove one of these, probably this very machine, I should imagine. And it's a terrible tragedy to see something like this happen to wonderful old steam engines, to just see them rotting away into oblivion here. It just almost makes you weep. It's a J-class, one of the late ones we had, a J-class oil burner. And I didn't like them very much as far as steamers were concerned, but I don't. It breaks my heart to see these sort of things happening to them. I know that they preserve some of them in squares and gardens and places like that, but this poor old fellow looks as though he's ready for the scrap heap.
But as the source of one career declined, the other grew. He discovered those things in the bush most people miss, the minutiae of nature. Most of it he painted, his eye always for the exact detail.
Seasons of the year, there's always something new and something different. At this particular time of the year,
After almost 4 decades, there was little joy left for Stan Kelly in train driving. It had become a chore, and with the responsibility for the lives of passengers, often a worrying one. 11 years ago, he welcomed his retirement. He had the chance at last to do what he wanted.
The guy's got all the weight, though.
oh, I don't know about that. I reckon the bloke on the long end of the lever's got it all.
You might be right.
But steam has not been allowed to die entirely. Slowly, a few locomotives have been restored by people whose enthusiasm for trains is rather like Stan's enthusiasm for painting the bush. This one's still owned by the Victorian Railways, but it's been restored and maintained by a group calling itself Steam Rail Victoria.
You check the trimmings in these boxes before a trip while you do the oiling up.
Around here, there are always people to listen to the experience of one of the original enginemen.
With the side of the feeder to get them out and see that they're all secure in position before you leave. And prior to a journey, this is the mechanical lubricator.
Stan has started to share their enthusiasm, and there's yet another book on the way of his life as a railwayman.
And that the oil's getting a good start.
Just got to get a couple of, about 12 turns before a trip.
That's right, yes. And then you just continue on down the engine doing into the boxes.
For Stan Kelly, retirement has not been the end of life, but a start. His contribution to science and to the understanding of the Australian bush is unique. It may be that no one else could have done it.